a device which is connected to the network,
Mhm.
which
Your ankle bone's connected to you.
I knew it was coming, so I just paused.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to Help Me with HIPAA. This is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs and Security First IT. Joining me is Donna Grindle of Cardin Compliance. Excuse me, Cardin. I'm never going to get that right. Too many years I've called it that.
You know, I'm going to have to come up with a name that goes in place of compliance. That'll make you better. I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably won't make you better at all.
I know. So, I don't know what to do. Cardin Grindle. I don't know.
Oh no. We'll just keep going with what's not working.
I know.
All right, man.
So, how have you been since last we spoke?
Since last we spoke,
Since the last podcast.
I've been good. I've been, running around like a one-armed paper hanger. One-armed paper hanger, like they say in the South. That's what my dad always said.
I can imagine.
He had all of those country sayings. He still does have all of those country sayings. You know?
Yeah, we do come up with some funny ones down here.
And you're like, what? Good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. Right. But, you know, that is has to do with the Creek Indians, by the by.
Oh, well, history lesson here.
Yeah, there you go. There's your Southernism. And most of them do have some sort of background to them. It's just they got lost over the years.
Yeah.
So we'll come up with some more. We'll do Southernisms.
Speaking of Southernisms,
yes.
talk about the hipper boot camp.
Boot camp. Ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Because I'm sure the boot camp was a Southern thing.
Yeah, really. Yeah. So boot camp, in case you haven't heard, is where we turn the fire hose on you for 2 days.
Of information, that is.
I know, really. It's we don't drown you. It's not torture, that kind of torture anyway. It might be torture, but it's 2 full days of HIPAA end-to-end privacy and security requirements. So you get blasted, and you can learn more in 2 days than you can learn on your own in
A lifetime.
a lifetime. At least for months and months. So definitely worth your time.
Mm-hmm.
And we've missed the super early bird pricing is expired, but we still have early bird. So instead of saving $400, you can still save $200 per person.
Yeah.
And we will see you July 19th and 20th in Tucker, Georgia.
Tucker, Georgia. Oh, by the way, we're running out of seats quick, Donna. I don't know if you know that or not.
I know. I always forget because we keep it limited. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll keep talking about it because I keep feeling like if somebody wants to learn, we want to teach them. But unfortunately, my team says we can't teach that many at the way you want to. So,
We keep it small and intimate.
yeah, I don't want to close it. So we're going to, yeah. We will debate the intimacy.
Sometimes it can be a little more intimate than it needs to be.
Indeed. So anyhow, go to thehippabootcamp.com for more information and to sign up. And if you have any questions, of course, reach out to us at
helpmewithhippa.com.
Yep. I keep giving David room to say stuff, and he doesn't. Y'all don't know how hard that is. But we don't see each other.
You catch me when I'm swallowing.
Okay, moving along.
All right, so today's podcast, we're going to talk about 4, maybe 5 steps.
It's a 4-step plus a bonus.
That's 5 steps. But we're going to talk about managing medical devices because that seems to be an issue.
Well, it really, one of the things when we do our assessments with everybody, we'll ask them about their medical devices. And do you have an inventory of your medical devices? Oh, yeah. And then they'll give you a list. And we say, well, we would really like for you to do a deeper dive on this because what you have just really isn't covering things. We don't think. Oh, yeah. And we but there's stuff, And so some types, especially specialties, like eye care, they have tons of different gizmos, that they can look in your eye with and do things with. And, and more technology is giving us all these capabilities and all these tests that they can do right there in your office. And we all like that, right? And so you have more devices than you know you do. You don't know what you don't know.
This is true.
Yeah. So we have been doing a deeper dive with one of our larger clients, and the deeper they dove, the more they learned. And they're like, yeah, there's some more stuff to worry about here. But it was interesting to see the responses and go through that process with them to dig deeper than where they thought they needed to, because it was enlightening, we'll say. And
it usually is.
Yeah. So we discovered things in our initial assessment with them that they hadn't even thought about. But because of that, we were like, let's put on your risk analysis, your management, that you need to do a deeper dive, that we feel like you're missing things. And I can't go into every exam room and see what somebody's doing.
Yeah.
I just can't. So that's why today we're going to talk about that process of managing medical devices and the things to worry about with all your medical devices. So even if you only have one to worry about, it's the same list, but we're going to make sure that you check to make sure you only have one.
Okay.
So hit it, David.
We're going to start at the beginning. How about that? So the first step is to find them.
And that is a huge problem. They have proliferated.
Yeah.
I love it when I get my word. But the quote that I saw in an article was that they believe that part of the reason healthcare feels like they've got a lot of vulnerabilities, it might be 190,000 different devices produced by 18,000 firms across 21,000 manufacturing facilities that are regulated by the FDA.
That's more than a couple.
Yeah, really. No wonder we can't find all the devices. There's 190,000 of them.
Yeah. Well, I think a good rule of thumb is if it plugs into something, it's probably needs to be evaluated.
Yeah. So that's why we say evaluate everything. And the idea is start a project where it involves everybody. Because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So the more people you have involved, the better off you are. And for an example, if you start and let's say you've got 8 locations, and you say, okay, I'm going to have the managers at each of the 8 locations fill out this form. Not saying that this has ever happened, but and each location has similar requirements and equipment. You keep it across all of them. And the managers came back. All of their lists were different. And their estimates of what it would cost to replace them range for a single, okay, everybody got the same device, but in their understanding of what it cost to replace them, it was anywhere from a few $100s to tens of thousands of dollars on the same device. So clearly there was not a organization-wide understanding of what was out there. And so that's why we said, okay, that's not working. Let's don't do it that way. And you go to who uses the medical devices? The clinicians. So you start with all the clinicians and you get them to make a list of all the devices they've ever used for diagnostic or treatment. And then we also learned you need to ask the IT people, because there was one device that everybody forgot about, but an IT guy had to work on it at one time, and he asked about it.
Yeah.
And everybody went, oh, yeah, we have that one too.
Yeah, especially those devices that are hidden under things or on top of things.
Yeah, and you're accessing them and you don't even know you're accessing them.
Yep. Yeah.
You know,
I found a router one time that was like way up on top of a cabinet, plugged into an outlet that was on top of the cabinet with wires that were hidden in the wall. It's like, well, okay, how long has this been there?
Yeah. It's even worse when you find a wireless access point that way.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And we don't even know what that one is. But
patient brought it in.
Well, we have it just to hook this one device up over here. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's look at that. It's not on our list either. So it is helpful to go on these quests, and you can even turn it into a game. Turn it into a game. Those who get the most of them first, or whoever identifies, one that no one else did, you get a prize. Whatever you need to do, the important thing is to make a list of everything that you use for diagnostic and treatment purposes that is any kind of device. Don't worry about whether or not it connects to the network. Don't give them any kind of boundaries. Just say, put it on the list.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, paper would not be. I use that piece of paper over there. I use that form. No, we're looking for devices, but they put it on a list, and then you have the opportunity to call the list from your perspective, and they don't have any kind of boundaries that it might prevent them from including something.
Right.
So that's great fun, and you send it out, and you, of course, have to have a deadline or it'll never get done. But just don't even worry about what they're putting on the list. You're better off having more than not having everything you need.
Right.
Now you got the list. That's step one. Do an inventory.
Mm-hmm.
But another point in making everybody do it together is security awareness.
Okay.
Get that? I mean, everybody worries about how can I teach security awareness? You know how I can teach security awareness? I tell them we need to know all these devices and make sure any of them connect to the network, that they're secure. Oh, so I'm participating in a security project. So there you go.
Yeah, make them own it.
Yeah. So step 2, David, this is your favorite part.
We must expand the list with details.
Yeah, I mean, you've gotten the generic list. Now you got to, you cull the list down to the ones you want to evaluate, but then you got a lot of research you got to do. I know, it's exciting.
Yeah. This is where you dig in more into what you don't know.
Well, and the other thing is that you still can get other people involved. So, like number one, you've got to get the vendor details. So, who did we buy that from? Well, you get purchasing or accounting involved, and you find out when did we buy it, who did we buy it from, how old is it, do we have any contracts about it, all of those kind of things.
Yeah, who's remoting into it that you didn't know about?
Yeah. How does the vendor support it for us? Does it have annual inspections? Did we lease it or own it so that we know the device? We need to know these things for further down the line in managing our risk. So that involves administrative stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, you could go back to the clinicians that use it and say, has this ever been inspected, updated, changed? But there's a lot of ways you can track all of that down, but that is a project by itself. Mm-hmm. And then you do the technical inventory of it. And, then it gets to how does it connect to anything? And I don't know if you've ever seen the ones where people will say, this one doesn't connect to the network. Okay. Does it get data on it? Yeah. It gets data on it because we do this and this and this. So then what do you do with it? Well, we plug it into that machine over there.
Yeah. The ones I hear most often are, it's not connected to the internet. It's only connected to the network. Okay. Yeah. We do get that there are misconceptions with people on a technical thing. So we want to just gather the information and not be critical of it. That's right, Donna.
Although we can talk about it later when we're nerds together. People need to feel comfortable telling you everything they know, even if it's things they don't know. And if they're telling you how they get data off of this device, and you say, how does it connect to the network? It doesn't connect to the network. or it doesn't need the internet, they say. But then I go over here and I plug it into that little stand over there, and then you go look, and that little stand over there that they think is a charging stand is a USB connected, data exchange thing. And so when they plug it in, it pulls the data into an app, and magic. But it is connected to a device, which is connected to the network, which...
Your ankle bone's connected to you.
I knew it was coming, so I just paused. I didn't want to take that one away from you. I almost said it.
I know.
I was so good to you. All right, so once we know its connectivity and we have the data on there about what it is and whether or not it connects, then that helps us cull the list down to the things that we really have to worry about. But the good news is we now have a proper inventory of all of our devices and where they are. And you'd be surprised how people are like, well, we're supposed to have one of those and we can't find it. Well, this is why we have an inventory. Mm-hmm. So you go through that connectivity stuff, and you also worry about the vendor, and does the vendor ever come in and access it, and how is that done? And then you have to figure out, well, does it run software? Does
Usually.
it have an operating system of its own that, like, it runs Windows? And we had, a while back, there was a call that came in, and it was to Carla, and it said, okay, you're not going to like this, but I have to tell you, we found something that's running Windows 98.
Oh, my gosh.
And, no one knew it was there.
Wow.
And it wasn't for lack of anything, and it wasn't on all the time, so the scans wouldn't necessarily find it unless it happened to be on when you ran a scan. And it was freaky, and, thankfully pretty straightforward to say, well, we rarely use it, so now we just won't use it. Mm-hmm. And we'll figure something out. But it was interesting, the process and what you learn. So what operating system does it run? And firmware is different than an operating system. Mm-hmm. So from a non-technical standpoint, it's kind of hard to define that. But like your...
Firmware tells the hardware how to function.
Yeah, how to talk to the software.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's firmly in place between the hardware and the software. Hi, how you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not hardware, it's firmware.
It's not software. Then it's not hardware. Then it's firmware.
I wonder if I have like flimsy wear. Or...
I don't know. All right. So can it be monitored like workstations are? Because sometimes these devices, they're running off of a connected, like a lot of the PAC systems and stuff, they'll just have a workstation that's kind of built in for it, and it has special software and hardware on it. Mm-hmm. But it's still running a Windows operating system, so you can put, your IT people can put monitoring agents on it and make sure it stays up to date. Unlike leaving it sitting there without anything on it, and it never gets updates.
Yeah.
And they are quite vulnerable if they do not have updates, as we know. I mean, WannaCry was because there was a lack of Windows updates. And do you know, I was looking at some statistics, and WannaCry is still at the top of the list of ransomware that's running around.
Really?
And, I mean, there's no reason for it.
No. Well, we have a client, luckily not medical, but they have a system that is so delicate that they say don't touch it, don't update it, don't do anything with it, just don't touch it. And although, so we've had to segment that one machine off of everything else away from it because they don't want to touch it. It's so, every time something updates, it breaks the functionality that they need. So nothing gets done to it.
I hate that. And that goes right back to the vendors that, are building the software and the devices that they need. And sometimes there are cases where you have to have those machines. Like we have one client that they have a legacy EHR, and every now and then they have to go get something off of it. Mm-hmm. And it's just not been out of service for them long enough for them to say, okay, everything's been moved over. And it's in a locked room that has no network drop in it at all. And you go in and you can log on to that. Only certain people are able to log on to it. And you have to be able to get into the dark, locked room. You know, we're going to put retina scans on it soon.
Unfortunately, I know people that are still using DOS-based EHR.
All right, moving along. I don't want I don't want to hear it.
There are still those out there.
And I walked up to at a meeting yesterday. I walked up to a vendor that I know, good friend, and I go up to say hi. And as I'm walking up, she's on her phone, and I hear her go, "My password is," and I turn around and went, "La la 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 la." It was a personal thing. It was one that she could give away, but you know, she's not a technical person, and we enjoy each other's company anyway. So the big issue, though, is patching and patch cadence and getting software patches in is one of the number one reasons we have cybersecurity issues.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't help when the patches come out and it breaks things, and then people get upset because Windows updates break something, and then you start hearing the people at top say, "Stop updating, stop patching. If it's causing this much trouble, stop doing it." It's like, kind of a necessary evil.
Yeah, we appreciate that. That's like the difference between being on the cutting edge and the bleeding edge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be on the bleeding edge. I want to be on the cutting edge.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to delay them if you can, but some of them you can't. You got to get them in there.
Yeah.
And and you'll be happy to hear Apple had a huge one that came out this week.
I know.
That, but you got to get them done. And if not, everybody knows they will be used, period. It's not if they use, they will be. Only if is, does it get to you before you patch it?
Right.
So, needless to say, the concerns about a lot of these medical devices, and we'll get on to that in just a second, is a lot of the vendors will say, well, we can't update it because of the FDA. And there have been some changes along that way, and we're going to get into that in just a second. But the last pieces of your inventory are what data is stored on the device and who has access to that data, and are there interfaces to get that data to other systems or to pull data from other systems. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people don't understand that those exist. Mm-hmm. And if there's data on the device, is it in your end of life policy for, how do you make sure that data is dealt with when you're going to not use the device anymore? And then finally, how do you access it? Does it have passwords? Are the passwords managed? Are they set? What staff members have access to the device and the information that's on it? And who owns it? Who manages that device to make sure that it has the updates and the services? Because a lot of times IT's like, well, we don't touch that. That's a big, kind of X-ray system. We don't do those. Or that's a sonogram. We don't do those. But somebody's got to be doing them.
Right.
So you need to define who owns that. Mm-hmm. Anything else you can think of there in that list?
I think you hit them all.
I did?
I think so.
No complaints from the peanut gallery?
Not yet.
Not yet. So as we have now, we've gotten our list of everything to look at. We've gathered our information about those things that we've found. We've been able to narrow it down to the ones that have some issues because they do connect in some way to the network and or the internet. Mm-hmm. Then you got to deal with the vendors and to make sure that you know what that vendor is going to do concerning that device and what their update policies are. And that is not fun.
No. Not at all.
No, it's not at all. And, there's a lot of misinformation that's out there. And now the FDA has made some changes because this is another piece that people don't understand is the FDA controls medical devices as far as their release and their utilization. HIPAA is not a concern of the FDA. Privacy and security has always been under HIPAA and HHS. FDA, its own little, animal over here, worried about the devices because they really didn't interact until the last, decade?
Mm-hmm.
And now, the FDA would have these long list of requirements. And basically, they would say if the vendor is going to make a major change to the software, that has to go through approval by the FDA again. And that's created a loop and a very complex scenario where we know we need to update that, but that means we have to go through the entire process again for a device we don't even sell anymore.
Wow.
Now, on the flip side of that, that also allowed them to say, we're not going to update that because we have to do this, so now you have to buy this one to get the fix.
Mm-hmm.
It's, catch-22 there, and you can only assume that that's truly the case. But what's happened now is that the FDA, it's released information about post-market cybersecurity, and it started asking questions in the pre-market submission that you get approval for the devices that say, show us what you've worried about, connected to the medical device from hazard and risk analysis and stuff like that. The controls to the risk that you considered. How can you make sure there's controls in place, or the ones you decided not to put in place? A summary that mentions what controls are in place that will make that software, maintain its. It'll make it keep up to date, and that you won't have to worry about it. And how do you make sure it doesn't get messed with? We always talk about the people that are building machines and putting in, every fifth one they put in a little card that's different, or they make a change to an individual device.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an interesting point of, we want to make sure that you maintain the integrity of what these controls are from the point of origin at where it leaves, and it gets to out of your control to the actual use in a medical environment. So how are you controlling your supply chain? Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Instructions, this was key. Instructions for use of cybersecurity controls, firewalls, antivirus, and then a summary for their plan to provide software patches and updates in the life cycle of the medical device to make sure it's effective and that it's safe for being used on patients without damaging cybersecurity of the practice or environment that uses it. So that was it's a big change for them to start asking those questions, because before you didn't have to have a plan, really. You don't need one.
Yeah, it just needs to work.
There, yeah. And that post-market stuff, they also made sure that you can allow, there was one point where you couldn't allow the people that use the device to update the devices in post-market, meaning once you have it, then the vendor has to update it. Well, that was great until all of this came along. But now it's like you can't do that anymore. You think about how many patches need to be installed these days. It's what how many just came out on this past Tuesday? 19?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just on Windows?
Yeah. It's a lot all the time.
Yeah. And so to say, well, the vendors have to come do it, well, you'd never be able to pay for it.
Yeah.
Support would cost more than the device. And, and granted, there are some times where the vendors have to do things, the device itself, they have to come and do things either from an inspection standpoint or whatever. But guess what? They may plug in a USB device to the device that is connected to your network.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or they call and, hey, we need to get IT to give us the admin credentials of your network so we can install this.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
Yeah, that's
yeah. Your answer to that was, I can let you talk to them, but they're not going to give it to you, so y'all work something out.
Yeah. They don't even give it to me.
Yeah. So there's plenty of things that the vendors are learning that they need to do or being directed to do in order to manage these devices and the security on them better than they have been before. It seems to be, and it could be an opinion, but it seems to be that security has always been an afterthought.
Mm-hmm.
It should be built into the process.
Security should be first.
Like Security First IT?
.com.
Oh, but at this point now, you've been through the device. You understand all the devices you have. You know what you're working with. You've evaluated how they connect to other systems, how they connect to your network, what access people have to them, and what you can do to manage the security on it from the vendor's perspective and working with your staff. Now, step number 4 is you build a plan.
Mm-hmm.
We call that a risk management plan. I think, we would have the list of things that we knew had to be dealt with. When we would say, okay, well, these are the medical devices we know we have a problem with, so we'd go ahead and put those on the risk management plan. But then you should do a deeper dive on your devices. We think there should be more. And then all of a sudden you're adding like 6 or 7 additional things to your risk management plan projects, plus additional reports and evaluations that you want IT to do for you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some articles we're going to have links to in the FDA, but they do have a list of things in the overall risk management for the devices that for each device you should evaluate. The authentications, getting back to the passwords and being able to use it, that trusted users are the only ones that should have the ability to do things. Mm-hmm. So whether it's username and password or biometrics or some method of authentication, you need to make sure the data is transferred securely to and from using encryption when it's reasonable and appropriate. Implement functionalities that allow analysis to detect, recognize, log, time, and act upon security compromises. Now, that is a key piece that we usually worry about the servers and the individual workstations, but no one's been worried about the medical devices. Mm-hmm. And you've seen these crazy horror stories, right? Where they can access a infusion pump and either jack it way up or shut it way down, or the access the radiology devices and turn it way up so it goes out of control. So we're not just talking about using it for hacks. We're talking about true patient safety issues.
Yeah. Crazy stuff.
And the other piece is provide end users with information about what to do when they think something is wrong. And that goes across the board. We talk about what should your people do. They should all know what to do when something looks wrong, not just say, reboot. Let's try rebooting it, see if it's all right. But there is a institute, the ECRI Institute, and they actually research and study patient safety issues, and it's pretty interesting. And they've, made their statements to the FDA on several things about devices, and they published a list of 10 challenges facing medical device cybersecurity. And that list would be what you want to make sure you've at least thought through in your risk management plan for these devices. So, inadequate medical device software inventory. I don't even know what software's on there.
Yeah.
Impractical patch installations. Oh, you have to have the vendor come do it.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to secure legacy devices.
Amen.
Yeah. Unsecure medical device design. We didn't even think about it. And then this one was really telling though, and it goes along the lines of something that you also would have to think about, David, is vulnerability scanning disrupting the medical devices. So if we're scanning for vulnerabilities and the device can't be running at the time that we're doing that, or it makes the test give improper results or fail because it's taken over processing time from the device, that could be very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just say, well, we're going to start scanning it, unless, of course, you're fortunate enough to not be in a 24-hour hospital environment.
Right.
Medical device server management, remote server access control, vendor reluctance to share information. IT and clinical engineering collaboration, or lack thereof.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah. And cloud services for medical devices, meaning, are there cloud services available? Is it actually accessing those and putting data where it shouldn't? Or is it not taking care of cloud services, not utilize them where you want them to? So there's your 4 steps in review.
Step 1, find them in your organization. Step 2 would be to expand your list and add more details. Step 3 would be to get the details and plans from your vendors. And step 4 would be to start building out your own risk assessment plan.
Yeah. What risk management is the key to the whole process. And if you just have somebody that's going to take care of that, that's what you're looking for. And then you monitor them. But then the plus a bonus comes into play. Hey, thank you for the drum roll, sir.
Step 5, to work with the powers that be in the organization to update the purchasing workflow to include evaluating how you will manage the cybersecurity requirements of the device. Ooh, that's tough.
I know. And, we do a similar thing when it comes to business associate agreements where we say, the purchasing workflow needs to change so that you worry about a business associate agreement and vetting the business associate up front, not after you've signed the deal.
Yeah, I've seen that happen firsthand. They got this vendor coming in, they're all excited, and then they go to do the BAA, and they're like, oh, we don't sign a BAA. It's like, what?
Wait, what?
Yeah, we just spent how much money to bring this in?
Yeah, and we've had ones where, they won't answer the vetting questions. We don't have to do this.
That's too intrusive.
Yeah, this is proprietary. You don't need to know if we have a security officer. Those kind of things. So having that understanding, and when you are able to put evaluation of the cybersecurity of a medical device in the process of actually purchasing it, just like putting the evaluation of a business associate in the process of actually signing a contract with them before you do it, that's when you have reached a culture of cybersecurity in your organization.
Mm-hmm.
Because it becomes that important. And until then, good luck.
All right.
You're already paddling upstream almost, but yeah, that's the objective. Yeah. Up a creek without a paddle. No,
yep. All right. So there's our 4+1 steps.
Yeah.
To get her done.
I will have to throw in there, this is the way, the up a creek without a paddle. My mentor used to say, I am up an unsanitary tributary without adequate means of propulsion.
That'll work as well. All righty.
That's it for today, folks.
Yeah, no kidding. So we give everybody something to worry about over the weekend. Thank you, Donna, again.
You're welcome.
All right, folks, that's our show for today. Remember to follow us on social media, share it out, rate us on the podcasting app. Hey, if you want to see the show notes for the episode, it's on our website. All the links are there as well, so go check that out. helpmewithhippa.com. Make sure you spread the word, and don't forget thehippabootcamp.com. Get in there now. because we got like one more coming up in the fall, and that's it for the year. So get in there.
We haven't committed to that.
Oh, well, okay. This was the last one for the year, so get in there.
We're talking about it, but I don't know.
All right. Well, we don't know. That's kind of how we roll around here.
That's what we do. How we do.
Yeah. So go to thehippobootcamp.com. Check that out. If you got any questions, email us at contact@helpmewithhippo.com. We'll get any questions answered. I'm sure Donna will be right on it. So, remember, for Donna and myself, that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.